Okay, so you heard Mr. Finley say in a previous video that people didn't go to the theater to be entertained. If you think about it today, when we go to the movies, we want to see a show that we don't already know how it turns out. As a matter of fact, we get pretty upset at people who tell us how movies and stories end. Well, this was a little bit different for the Greeks. For the Greeks, they would have already known all of the stories and all of the things that are being talked about on the stage. What would have been exciting for them was the experience of going through it. So as you go to read this stage, since you're not an ancient Greek, you're going to need some background on exactly what was happening before the play opens. Even though our story clearly predates most fairy tales, it still begins kind of like you'd think of a usual fairy tale, with a king and a queen, and they're not quite living happily ever after because they really want a baby. Well, one of the things that was very common in those days was for people who were going through a major life event was to consult the oracle. Now, the oracle was supposed to be the voice of the gods, a messenger, kind of a mediator between humans and the gods. And the thing about the oracles is that they didn't always give a straight answer. So kind of like if you read your horoscope today, there was a lot of room for interpretation. Well, here's King Laius and Queen Jocasta, and they go to the oracle and ask something about their children and their future, and they don't really like what they hear. Because the oracle comes back with an incredibly disturbing prophecy. 1, you will have a son. 2, he will grow up to murder his own father, and then he will marry his mother and have children by her. So don't think that this was the kind of thing that was acceptable in ancient Greece. They were just as horrified by this news as you would be today. So they're faced with this really terrible situation. What are they supposed to do? So they decide, well, this baby that's born, this son, they can't possibly let this kid live and grow up to kill his father and marry his mother. That's just, no, that can't happen. So they say, you know what? We're going to have to get rid of this kid, and we're going to have to get rid of him fast. So they pierce their son's ankles together and tie him up. Nobody's really quite sure why, but probably so he couldn't crawl away. And they give him off to a shepherd. And they tell the shepherd, take this kid, take him as far away as you can, take him up to the top of a really cold mountain, and just leave him up there on the mountain and let him die of exposure. And figure this way, we're not actually murdering our own son, but this will definitely take care of this baby problem, and we don't have to worry about him growing up to do anything. So again, kind of like an early prototype of the fairy tale stories we're used to, this shepherd doesn't like this situation at all either. He's looking at this little innocent baby and he says, you know what? I can't kill this baby either. What am I supposed to do now? So like the huntsman in the Snow White story who gets this girl out in the woods and then realizes he really can't murder this innocent person, the shepherd tries. He goes up to the top of Mount Citharon, and this is where a lot of different shepherds bring their sheep to graze, and it's a very isolated spot, very high, very cold. And he says, I can't just leave this baby here. And he says, I know what I'll do. I'll give him to another shepherd. The shepherds here come from all over. So this baby is going to be raised by a shepherd from a faraway town, and he'll grow up in some poor household, and he'll never make it back to Thebes and have anything to do with royalty, right? We should be good with this plan. Yeah, so that doesn't quite work out because this second shepherd, he starts having second thoughts and he says, I can't really afford another baby and another mouth to feed, but you know what? In my town, my king and queen, my king Polybus and my queen Merope, back in my hometown of Corinth, they haven't been able to have any kids. I'll bet if I bring them this baby that they'll be really grateful to me, and this way this kid can grow up, and whatever this other shepherd's problem was, he will never know what happened with this. So that's exactly what happens. Queen Merope and King Polybus raise Oedipus as their own child, and they never tell him that he's adopted in any way. So Oedipus the baby is growing up thinking all this time that he is a royal child, which is actually true, but not those particular royal parents. But as things happen, of course, the truth has a way of coming out. So a bunch of years go by, and Oedipus is now a young man, and they're at a big wedding. And as people do at weddings, they're all having a good time and partying, and some guest who's drank a little bit too much kind of lets it slip, the secret that the king and queen have kept all this time, that Oedipus is not actually the son of Polybus and Merope. Now, Oedipus is really insulted by this because he thinks someone's trying to say that he's not royal, and that he isn't actually his father isn't actually his father, and basically calling him all sorts of names. So Oedipus kind of loses his temper over this particular idea. So, of course, Oedipus goes to mom and dad and says, hey, is this what's happening? And Polybus and Merope absolutely flat out lie to his face and say, oh, no, you are our child. There's no way that this other person is true. Don't believe him. He was drinking. Don't listen to anything at all. Now, Oedipus is a really smart guy, and he's picked up that something isn't quite right here. So he loves to solve problems, and he loves riddles. So he decides to go back to the oracle, the same one that his real parents, if you remember, talked about, but he doesn't know anything about that. So he goes back to the oracle at Delphi, and he tries to ask it about his parents, hoping again for a straight answer that would put to rest once and all this insult that this wedding guest had put together and the strange way that his own parents have been acting. Now, if you're looking for a straight answer, the last place you want to go is the oracle. The oracles were notorious for giving these kinds of trick or riddle sorts of answers. But Oedipus goes up to the oracle and he asks the oracle if Polybus and Merope are indeed his real parents. And the oracle answers by giving him a prophecy about his future. Have you figured out what's about to happen? And sure enough, the oracle gives Oedipus the exact same answer that it gave back to King Laius and Queen Jocasta all those years ago when Oedipus was born. You, sir, are going to grow up to kill your own father and beget or have children by your own mother. Now, just as his real parents were horrified all those years ago at his birth, Oedipus is horrified by this. But remember the one key thing. Oedipus thinks his real parents are Polybus and Merope. So Oedipus says, you know what? I can't possibly go home. How can I look at my father with the idea that I, his son who loves him and has grown up with him, would be the one to kill him? And how can I possibly look at my mother with, oh, no, can't go there. So Oedipus decides he's going to leave and go as far away as he possibly can from his home kingdom, or what he thinks is his home kingdom. But of course, a little bit of things going on here. We as the reader know that if he's running away, trying to run away from his real parents, Polybus and Merope are not the issue. He could go back to Corinth where he's grown up his whole life if he wanted to. The worst thing that he could do is to head west out towards the town of Thebes. So of course, he heads west out towards the town of Thebes. This is actually an excellent example of a very common technique that you'll see in literature, known as dramatic irony. And dramatic irony is something that happens when we, as the audience, know a piece of information that the character hasn't discovered yet on stage. And the irony is that we watch the character go through all these things without knowing this key piece of information. And this creates a bit of foreshadowing and suspense as we wait for the moment that the character is going to discover this also. Now, remember, Oedipus's real parents, King Laius and Queen Jocasta, back in Thebes, all of these years ago, they gave up this baby. They think the baby's long dead, and all this time has gone by. Certainly nothing has happened, and no one's shown up to try to murder the king, and certainly the queen is still married to the original king, so everything seems to be fine. But some bad things have been going on back in Thebes. They have this trouble with a visitor to the town that no one's very happy about, and this visitor is the Sphinx. And the Sphinx is this big creature with these wings and these teeth in his head, and we'll talk more about the Sphinx later. But the Sphinx has a riddle. The Sphinx stands at the gate of the town and asks everyone who passes by the riddle, and if you can't answer her riddle, well, she eats you. And this is not a good thing. And the people are just going crazy. It's like they can't get into the town, they can't get out of the town, the Sphinx is eating all the people. What are we supposed to do? Well, King Laius, because he's a good king and he wants to help everybody out, says, I know, let me go to the Oracle at Delphi again, a popular place these days, and see if I can find out what on earth we've done wrong in this kingdom, how we can possibly help out, and why the Sphinx is still punishing and tormenting us here in Thebes. So if you're following along with the story here, we've got two of our main characters out on the road. We've got King Laius on his way to the Oracle to find out why the Sphinx is eating all these people, and we've got Oedipus on his way from the Oracle trying to run away in the opposite direction from what he thinks is his hometown. And of course, at a place where three roads meet at the crossroads, this father and son, who have no idea that they're father and son, run smack into each other. Now, both Oedipus and his natural dad, remember she does not know that's his natural dad, have a little bit of a temper, and they're both kind of used to getting their own way, and they come in together at this crossroads, and they have a fight about who should step out of the path of the other one. And this fight gets angry and it gets loud, and legend has it that Laius first reaches out and kind of whacks Oedipus, and Oedipus gets a little mad about this, and they have this fight back and forth, and oh, too bad, Laius is dead. And Oedipus didn't really mean to kill the king, but they were kind of fighting, and Laius is just not going to be with us anymore. So are you with me so far? The first part of the prophecy has now been fulfilled. Oedipus has grown up, and he has just murdered King Laius, who is, of course, his own biological father. Now, Oedipus has no idea who he's killed. He doesn't even know that this guy was a king, much less that it was his own dad. So he continues on his merry way, and he goes up to the city of Thebes, which is the next big city as he heads westward, and he meets the Sphinx, or he runs into this monster. Now, the Sphinx does exactly what the Sphinx has been doing. It asks Oedipus its famous riddle. And here is the famous riddle of the Sphinx, the one that's been getting all these people killed. See if you can come up with an answer. What goes on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? Think about it. I'll play the Jeopardy theme music for a little bit. See if you can come up with an answer. Have you got it yet? To get the answer correctly the way that Oedipus does, you have to realize that the Sphinx was speaking metaphorically. To go on 4 legs in the morning refers to a person in the morning of their lives. Now, the morning of your life is when you're young. So what do young children do, very young babies do to get around? They crawl on all 4 legs. Then at noon, or in midlife of a person's life, they walk on 2 legs as they walk upright. And then in the evening, in the twilight of someone's life, as they're getting older now, they walk on 3 legs because they have their own 2 legs, and then they use a cane to help steady them. So the answer to the riddle is mankind, or humans, go on 4 legs in the morning of their lives, on 2 legs in the noon of their lives, and on 3 legs in the twilight of their lives. And Oedipus gets the right, and yay, there's much rejoicing, and the people come in and they carry him up on their shoulders, and it's like they had a football game, and if there had been confetti, it would have fallen down at this point. And they say, you know, Oedipus, you are the best guy ever. You are so smart. You look really good here to us. We don't have a king because our king left a while back and seems to have been murdered on the side of the road. We don't know really what happened, but he's dead and gone, and you seem like a really good guy. We want to make you our new king. And what's the fastest way to become a king? Marry a queen. So they bring out Jocasta, his mom, and they say, you know what? Marry our queen, come rule over us, and everybody will live happily ever after. So ding, 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 the oracle is now right. Oedipus has murdered his father and has now come in and married his own mother without any of them knowing that this is what's happening. So by running away from home and by trying to get rid of the baby, they actually caused the prophecy to come true. Again, dramatic irony. So about 20 years go by. Things seem to be going pretty good. Now, it's not quite as bad as you think. I mean, yeah, the marrying the mother part is kind of bad, but Jocasta was probably a very young bride to begin with, so it's not like she's that much older than Oedipus. She probably was about 15 or 16 when she gave birth, so it's not like Oedipus has married this ancient crone or anything. So they're living together, they're ruling over Thebes, life is going pretty good. Oedipus has been a great king. They have 4 children together, 2 boys and 2 girls. I know, the ick factor, but that's what's going on here. But now things have kind of turned. About 18 to 20 years later now, Thebes is having a new plague. The crops won't grow. The weather is terrible. People are dying of starvation and disease. And this is where the play opens, where the people have once again come to Oedipus and said, you know what? You saved us before from the Sphinx. Please, 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 our wise and mighty king, find an answer to this solution. Why do the gods hate us so much? Why are we being punished with this plague and this starvation? What is going on? What's wrong? Save us once again, please, King Oedipus. And this is where the play starts.